Between recording this video on Friday and posting it, 6 more people were killed in 2 more strikes on boats allegedly carrying narcotics. This brings the death toll to 76. If Venezuelan gangs and the Nicolas Maduro regime aren't controlling the fentanyl trade, then why is the U.S. blowing up people at sea? I'm Justin Yentis with Truth Be Found, and this is a quick update that aims to give clarity and facts to the misinformation and lies being spread around these drug runners and cartels, Tren de Aragua, and other political boogeymen being used as talking points in the media. So a couple of things that we know. We know that U.S. messaging says that recent at-sea strikes are targeting narco-terrorists. Now, this is being run by the Joint Counter-Narcotics Task Force under the Department of Defense, or the Department of War, whatever you want to call it. And that is the organization that is carrying out these hits. Public tallies cited by the defense officials claim roughly 18 small vessel strikes, totaling about 70 fatalities justified as counter-drug operations. The administration is framing this campaign as a lawful conflict against cartels, who they're now calling terrorists as of 2025, and linking these strikes to protecting Americans from drug deaths, specifically fentanyl. Now, this is significant. This designation is significant for a couple of reasons, but most importantly, because the government's entire argument hinges on one single issue: rejecting the law enforcement framework and asserting that a state of armed conflict exists. Now, this is vital because we already have signed treaties on how law enforcement and prosecutorial investigations are conducted between nations, and specifically between the United States and Venezuela. Our agreement and our treaty with Venezuela is known as the Treaty with Venezuela on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters. This was signed in 1997, and it's commonly known as the MLAT. Now, this decree outlines how both nations operate to, quote, in the prosecution of those involved in terrorism and drug trafficking. So why are we not honoring our contracts? This contract is not unique to Venezuela. We have similar agreements that I've operated under while working in Canada, Mexico, El Salvador, as well as Europe. Whenever we're preparing an international investigation involving U.S., federal, or state governments as its agent in an enforcement capacity, we have to verify that we're in compliance with the MLAT, and sometimes we're prevented from moving forward if we're not. As an important side note, this new labeling of drug traffickers as terrorists is even being seen on a state level. In my state of Arizona, the state legislature passed a bill to designate all cartel members as terrorists, but then they went even further to expand the definition of a cartel member to someone that runs or assists in immigration drop houses, anyone involved in human or drug smuggling or drugs trafficking. Now, human smuggling is obviously a horrible situation to deal with, but the participants are on a spectrum, and not all of them operate in an equal manner of, Osama bin Laden or Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The same thing happened with low-level drug dealers. The guy in your high school that used to sell, dime bags of marijuana, well, he's now a terrorist. So let's talk about what doesn't line up in the Caribbean. The U.S. government is currently waging an undeclared war and avoiding law enforcement actions for reasons known only to them. Now, some may speculate that the Venezuelan-owned PDVSA Corporation, which means Petróleos of Venezuela, which, side note, holds the single largest oil reserve on the planet, may have something to do with it, or the immense natural gas, iron ore, gold, or coal reserves. But we'll leave that speculation to others. What we do know is that Colombia is the world's largest cocaine producer, supplying buyers and distributors worldwide, with a portion of that which travels through Venezuela to the Dominican Republic and Europe. We also know that the primary trafficking routes for Colombian cocaine are through the Darien Gap and north through Central America or along the Pacific coast to supply the Mexican drug cartels, not island hopping through the Caribbean. In the southern United States, we know that multiple criminal groups control the border and the coastline. Once drugs leave Colombia, independent brokers and not a single cartel manage bribes, port access, and logistics across borders. Most product moves through the same commercial routes as legal goods, and we've seen everything you can imagine along the southern border. I've seen shipping containers with false walls filled with narcotics, vehicles with hidden compartments that they call claves built into them, stuffed with fentanyl pills. And for a long time, it seemed like every other month I'd get a case where we'd have Mexican nationals who were seeking to cross the border, and they were being taken in by drug traffickers asking to carry loads, or actually large bales of marijuana on their backs. This has pretty much gone away since the legalization of marijuana in Arizona. But let's talk about the issue at hand, and that is the bombing of boats in the Caribbean to combat the drug trade. For this, we'll reference the DEA's own 2025 National Drug Threat Assessment, published in May of 2025. Now, remember, we started bombing these drug boats 4 months later in September. Robert Murphy, the acting administrator of the DEA, said, and I quote, "The Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel are the primary groups producing the illicit synthetic drugs driving U.S. drug poisoning deaths and trafficking these drugs into the United States. The cartels produce fentanyl and methamphetamine in clandestine laboratories in Mexico using precursor chemicals and pill presses sourced from companies in China. They rely on business relationships with drug trafficking organizations in the United States who handle the distribution and sale of drugs, and with Chinese money laundering networks to move drugs quickly and consistently from the United States to Mexico. The cartels are threatening the security and stability of our partners across the Western Hemisphere." So last night, Pete Hegseth posted on X, "Today, at the direction of President Trump, the Department of War carried out a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel operated by a designated terrorist organization. The vessel was trafficking narcotics in the Caribbean and was struck in international waters. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike, and 3 male narco-terrorists who were aboard the vessel were killed. To all narco-terrorists who threaten our homeland, if you want to stay alive, stop trafficking drugs. If you keep trafficking deadly drugs, we will kill you." So my question is this: what the hell is he talking about? Is he referring to the cocaine that Colombia produces that has a fraction passing through Venezuelan hands, primarily to Europe? Or is he talking about fentanyl, which the DEA director linked directly to Mexico and China? So what's next? If the Sinaloa drug cartel and Nueva Generación cartel in Jalisco are now designated as terrorists, with a confirmed flow of the majority of U.S.-bound cocaine and fentanyl, can we expect airstrikes in San Luis, Arizona? Perhaps in San Isidro, south of San Diego, along the Tijuana border? Are you going to start bombing Juarez and along the El Paso border? Striking scattered boats may produce body counts, but the evidence shows that it's not the pipeline to the United States that the government claims. Are boat strikes a counter-narcotic solution, or is it a narrative to cover for something else? At the end of the day, this is about accountability and transparency, and whether we still value truth in that process. Thank you for tuning in to Truth Be Found. The hunt for answers never stops, and neither do we. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us online to stay in the loop. Remember, truth has a way of coming to light. Until next time, keep your head up and your eyes sharp.